Welcome to School of PE podcast. I'm your host, Chris Miller, and I'm so glad that you could join me this week. We are going to discuss topics about FE, PE, and SC, and we're also going to answer questions that will help students prepare for their exams. Let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to School of PE's podcast episode 3. Today's an exciting day. I have with me Mr. Mike Villarosa. He's one of our instructors as well as a practicing engineer, so I thought I'd kind of bring him by today and kind of chat and kind of get to know him a little bit more, and then also talk about some cool engineering stuff. So, Mike, if you would, please just take a few moments to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Chris. I appreciate the opportunity. I'm excited for this podcast and our chance to finally talk together face-to-face, as close as face-to-face as we'll get. I'm here in New York, obviously. And I've been teaching for the School of PE now for about 3 years. We've done a bunch of sessions. I'm a water resources instructor for the PE exam, and I'm progressing towards looking at teaching some environmental classes for you, it sounds like, in this upcoming fall session. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, me too. I mean, you've done quite a bit for us. I think you've been with us, about 3 years, I think, going on?
Yeah, it's been about 3 years, so it's been a lot of fun, and this past year has been a little crazy, obviously, with everything online. But
absolutely.
Luckily, School of PE has been well prepared already for all the online stuff with Adobe Connect and all the programs that they have already set up. So it's been good.
Great, yeah. So I know you've done Onsite for us, and you've also done the, obviously now you're just doing the live online, but, talk about some of the experiences that you had, whether it be Onsite or online, and, maybe talk about how, since you've done both the Onsite and the online, what kind of differences have you noticed, maybe not just with the way you teach, but also with, student experience and engagement?
Yeah, the Onsite I definitely enjoy. I like getting to travel for the weekend too. My wife doesn't love it, me being away for the weekend and her having to take care of a 3-year-old and a 5-month-old now. But it's been good with the in person. After class, I usually stay, interact with the students face to face. They enjoy it. I actually took the Onsite class in Newark, New Jersey, and that's really how I started with School of PE. When I took the class, I was astonished at how great the program was, how easy it made the tests for me. I used all the School of PE notes to take the exam, and then I reached out to School of PE the month after I found out that I passed to see what the process was to getting a job with you guys. And a couple years later, it took, but you reached out to me and out of the blue, really, and asked me if I wanted to teach water resources. So it was great. Moving to the online class has been a little challenging for me, but again, it's been set up so smoothly that it's already been an option for School of PE well before COVID-19. We were able to do all the notes, interact with the students through the chat. They ask a lot of questions outside of class. I would say that's the biggest difference, is sometimes things don't come up during class in the chat, and it's a lot of off class time between emails and things like that that we interact with the students.
Well, like I said, we're glad to have you. The energy you bring has been tremendous. You also bring some entertainment to the classroom, which is nice, because especially on the weekends, those classes tend to be a little bit longer. They're all day. So, trying to keep attention, not just for students, but heck, myself would have a hard time. But you always have some little entertainment that you bring with you, and the students enjoy it. So it's a great way to kind of break up the monotony of the class. But also, I think when you first started, was LA your first location?
Yeah, I mean, maybe you'll remember this, but I asked you back and forth emails, like 5,000 emails between the two of us. You reached out to me. The email was pretty much, "Hey, I have an opening in water resources. Can you teach it?" I said, "Well, this seems interesting. Yes." And then your next email was, "Okay, it's in LA on whatever week." And I was like, "Whoa, what?" And then I was explaining it to my wife, and she was asking me questions. I was like, "Well, I don't know. Let me ask him." So I'd ask you another question about the flights and about the hotel and how does this work? How does that work? And being from New York, a small town in Warwick, never been to California. And that was my first opportunity to go to California and get to work for the weekend and help out some students at the School of PE. It was great.
What'd you think of your first trip out to LA? I'm from LA, so I moved to Ohio in 2004, so it's my backyard kind of. So what'd you think of it being from the East Coast? Besides weather probably being the biggest difference.
The weather was different from an engineering standpoint because I'm a big nerd and was looking at this stuff. All the roads were in great shape, and the infrastructure, everything looked new and clean, isn't deteriorated from salt and weather. In New York, I had family come from Texas recently to New York, and they said that the one thing that they forgot about New York is how old and deteriorated it looks. But it still functions, and I mean, I was born and raised here, so this is pretty much all I know.
As long as it's still functional, I guess that's all that really matters. So
Exactly.
the funny thing is, we do the on-site class out in LA, and we have some other instructors that live in the Jersey area. A lot of them teach at the NJIT, but only instructors from New Jersey or New York go to LA. It's the craziest thing. I don't know if you guys all enjoy the long flights or what it is, but even the students are like, wait a second, everyone's coming from New York to LA. I'm like, well, if it's during the fall, it's probably to get away from the weather. But I have not, not one instructor I don't think is taught outside of New York or New Jersey and LA. So you kept the tradition alive.
The weather there was good. The flight there is awesome because you get whatever time I take off, it's like an hour later I'm landing because of the time difference. It's leaving there after the 3 p.m. class. I would leave there, the hotel right at 3, right when the class ended. I usually hop on like a 7 or 8 o'clock flight, and I fly home throughout the night, but I'd get home at like with the time difference, it was a 6-hour flight plus the 4-hour time difference. It was like 5 in the morning, and I'd usually just drive straight to work from there and then work for the day.
Well, that's kind of a perfect leeway. What do you do when you're not teaching for School of PE?
I'm here today at Orange County Department of Public Works, my local county, again, that I grew up in. I live in the town I grew up in. I actually live 10 houses up from the house that my mom, where I grew up. So it's convenient for the kids. We're just rolling down the street in the carriage and head off to work. But yeah, I worked originally for a consulting firm about 20 minutes from my house, called Casey Engineering. We did a bunch of water and wastewater treatment plants, some site design, municipal work, all for a consulting firm. I was there for about 4 years. That's where I got my PE. While I was there, I was a consulting engineer, municipal engineer, and then my boss actually quit there, came to the county, and that's when I did. He gave me a call about a year after he came to the county, DPW, and said, "I have an opening. Do you want to come along?" And I said, "Absolutely." I was commuting at that time. They moved me from 20 minutes from my house to about an hour from my house. So I greatly appreciated the change because it was a lot closer to home. Now my commute's again about 20 minutes, and in the county that I live, I'm familiar with everything. I know most of the people, so it's really rewarding to do some of the work. On the other hand, I get a lot of complaints. I see people at the grocery store. How come you paved this road this way? How come you did this? How come my driveway's flooding? But it's all good, and I really enjoy being able to work here.
It's kind of neat that working where you grew up. That's pretty cool. It's a great story for sure. Being an East Coaster, it's funny. Last week we had Miss Sydney May on, and we got into about I don't know, maybe 10 minutes or so before I learned that. I knew she was from Alabama, but I didn't know she was an Alabama grad. So that definitely took me off onto the wrong path, being a Buckeye. So I know you're a Steeler fan, right?
Oh yeah, I got I brought my terrible towel for you. I had it in my office hanging up. So
I know during the season we'll talk football. But so where'd you go to school? For your undergrad?
So I went actually not traditional engineering path. I went to a state university, SUNY Cortland, it's called, in upstate New York, right outside of Syracuse. Probably the best 3 years, the peak of my life. Great time, so much fun. But I was in a program there where it was called a 3+2. So you go to the state school for 3 years, do all your calculus, chemistry, physics classes, and then transfer out to a private engineering school for 2 years. So for those 3 years, it's almost like a community college type program, but it's not. It's still a 4-year school. And I got a physics degree from Cortland. And then after my junior year, I transferred out to Manhattan College, which is actually in the Bronx, in Riverdale.
Okay.
And I went there for 2 years. And the Cortland credits transferred into Manhattan, and the Manhattan credits transferred back to Cortland. So I actually got 2 degrees, one in physics from Cortland, and then one in civil engineering from Manhattan.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah,
What was
so
your favorite subject if you had to pick just one?
Definitely in high school, it was math. And then in college, I would have to say physics in the engineering classes.
So typical response, I'd say, for an engineer, right? Math,
Yeah,
science.
I mean,
So.
you have to enjoy those to be an engineer.
Oh, absolutely. So, I mean, what made you want to teach? I mean, it's a big difference from, practicing engineer to teaching. I mean, the great thing about a lot of our instructors, I'd say maybe probably 90 to 100% of our instructors is they have a true passion for, wanting to help people. So, I mean, what drives you each day? Because I know you work all day and then you have to teach at 7 o'clock, or if you teach a weekend class, you're teaching from 10 to 6 on Saturdays and Sundays. So, it's a big time commitment. So what drives you to get through it? I mean, not only that, the time you're teaching, is time that you're away from, spending with the kids. You have a newborn. So, what gets you up to go every day?
Yeah, it's been tough with the newborn, but he's actually been a better baby than the first one. So it's actually been pretty smooth so far, knock on wood, but we think he's getting some teeth. So that might be, we might be in trouble there. Yeah, I mean, I stayed at Manhattan actually after graduating from my bachelor's degree, and went to grad school to get a master's in environmental. And when I stayed there, I was doing some teaching assistant, helping out. I was actually working full time for a professor. He was my advisor, and I enjoyed it. I liked being in the classroom. I mean, I sat in on some of his lectures, and then I helped grade papers. I did some guest lecturing, and I just liked the aspect where the student teacher relationship, where they would ask questions and be so excited, or the light bulb would come on once I'm re-explaining something, was really rewarding. And I actually had saved all of my college books, even from Cortland to Manhattan to grad school, with the anticipation that one day I could see myself teaching a college class, or something like this, like a tutoring outside of work.
Oh, very good. I mean, it's a rewarding for sure, helping people prepare for not just the FE, but also the PE as well. And then to see them, for a lot of these engineers, it's a big stepping stone, right? They take their PE and it opens up a whole new world to them. And so a lot of stress goes into it. And one of the great things about the instructors is you guys have all gone through it yourselves. So you can relate to, what the students are feeling. And, like when I talk to the engineer students, I always tell them, hey, just put your nose down for the next 6 months, head to the grindstone, take the exam, pass, and done. Easier said than done. I haven't been through it. And you have you guys that have been through it and are able to explain it. And it helps calm the nerves for a lot of these people that are getting ready to take the exam. Because, preparing for an exam is tough. Not just you got to learn the material. You kind of got to change the way you live for a little while. And then a lot of it is the nerves. So
especially on the PE exam, when you've been out of college for at least 3 or 4 years and you haven't taken an exam. At least with FE, well, some people take it right while they're in college and they're in that mindset of taking tests and studying, whereas 4 years later, your life's completely different.
I agree. And then, with us, I'd say probably about 70% of the students that come through School of PE for their FE have been out of school for about 10 to 15 years. So they got to shake off a lot of the cobwebs too. Ideally, it's great to take the FE your last year in college or right after graduation, because all those subjects are, still fresh in your mind. But it is doable, as it's been proven over and over again, that students can still, take and successfully pass it even after being out for a while. But it is nice to have instructors like you that, have been in their seats and understand what it's like to go through the hard work to see the payoff. So let's say, you had a young person come up to you and say, I'm thinking about being an engineer. What would you tell them, or what advice would you give them?
Run. No, I'm just kidding. I think it's a great profession. One of the fundamental canons, or whatever in ethics, they say to promote the profession. So that is part of my way of giving back to the profession. What it's given me is to help out students get more PEs into the world, get more successful engineers to work with. I wish that every engineer that I worked with was the best engineer possible. It'd make my job easier. But I would definitely tell someone who's thinking about it, and I've told people who are thinking about it, that it's a great profession. Right now, if you look at the whole country, the infrastructure, you'll never be out of a job. There's plenty of jobs to look for. Everyone's hiring, so it's a really great profession.
We're going to take a quick break from our conversation with Mike to talk briefly about our FE Civil Practice Exam Questions and Solutions booklet. You can now pre-order your own copy from the School of PE's website. It's due to come out here in just a matter of weeks here at the end of May. You're not going to want to miss this key resource to help you pass your FE Civil exam. Now let's get back to our conversation with Mike Villarosa.
The company that we purchased, we acquired this employee, and the way their company was set up was that the owner would just do all the signing. He didn't really need a license, even though he did most of the design work and was capable. He just never had a need to have a PE license. So he took the PE in his mid-40s, and then he took the FE 6 months later, and he said the FE was much harder and much more difficult because it was all that basic college information.
And all those subjects that you never want to see again, you kind of forget after.
I'll be honest, as a professional engineer, I don't even really see some of that stuff anymore. I don't do the derivatives and calculus and chemistry.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
If you see that, you just hand it off to somebody else. you know, it's an interesting path for sure. So what are some of the biggest changes that you've seen in engineering?
I would say with technology, especially my current position, even though I teach water resources, my current position now with it's really the highway department, is principal engineer of the highway department. So I'm the traffic or the county engineer with regards to roads, highways, guide rails, traffic lights. So one of the biggest things that I've seen in the transportation end change is some of the technology. We just started installing, we're late to the game with this, but we just started installing bell cameras at some of our traffic signals for loop detection. Usually they put loops in the roadway to detect cars so that they know when the light should go red and when it should go green. But now, rather than having that in the ground, we're installing cameras up above to monitor intersections and things like that.
All right. So no wonder everyone in the community will blame you if there's a road issue, right? Because you pretty much are the road guy.
Yeah, so, we actually started our paving program yesterday. We started paving our first road, and I had 3 friends already text me between yesterday and today saying, "Hey, what are you guys doing Liberty Corners Road out there?" So
in Ohio, roundabouts are a big thing. Do you guys have the roundabouts out there in the East Coast?
We have them. Massachusetts likes them. I go to Cape Cod for the summer, some for vacation. They have them. Jersey likes them. In New York, I like them. In New York, we just started. The state DOT is installing them sporadically. They work really efficiently, but people still hate them because people don't like change.
I agree. Being from LA, I don't think I ever saw a roundabout until I moved to Ohio. When I first saw one, I'm like, what in the world is this? Who concocted this strange thing?
Is dumb, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, what the heck? No one knows when to go, when to stop. And then a few years ago, maybe about 3 miles from the office, they built the world's largest roundabout. This thing is gargantuan. And I bet you every day for the first 30 days, there's probably an accident. So everyone was probably calling down to transportation saying, what the heck are you guys doing down there? You guys are supposed to be engineers. But if an engineers tell me they're effective, then I will complain no more.
Never trust an engineer, though. Hey.
So what kind of advice I know the PE exam just happened here last week. So big relief for a lot of people that were preparing for the April exam. But the FE is ongoing. So what kind of tips would you give to somebody that's getting ready to take the FE?
For the FE, I would say take the School of PE. No, they didn't pay me to say that. If you're preparing for the FE, look back at some of your college notes. The biggest thing I say for the FE and the PE is practice, practice, practice. Do as many practice problems as you can. You can get them from all different sources, but if you could start to simulate that time mechanism and how many minutes you have per question, and just keep doing practice problems. Use your references. I know on the FE, it's not open book. The PE, we're moving towards online as well, so that's probably not going to be open book anymore. But use your references, use the NCES guide for the FE exam, practice knowing where things are to look them up, where the index is, where what conversions to use. Some of those you'll start to memorize. Keep doing practice problems.
That's some great advice. I mean, kind of simulate the actual exam day itself. Become familiar with your references is huge. After all, it is a time exam, so you don't want to spend a lot of time digging through things, trying to find things. The PE exam is moving that way. This is the last paper pencil, at least for the PE Civil, this coming October. So, the good news, a lot of people that are taking the PE, they'll at least have had the trial going through with the FE and seeing how that computer-based is. So that'll be exciting to see how that kind of plays a spin into those that are preparing for the exam.
I know I'm going to be the old guy now teaching. I'm going to be. I was one back in the day when it was in paper and pencil.
Oh, yeah, you won't be able to say that anymore for most of these exams are all going to be CBT eventually. So, but I mean, what do you think is the biggest thing to kind of transition to as you're, preparing for these? Is it just to kind of reduce the number of references that you prepare from, or what do you think would be the best way since you can't take any of them with you?
Yeah, I think that the exam itself is going to have to transfer towards having some of that stuff either in the references, like some of the construction stuff when they reference like a specific OSHA code. No matter what engineer you talk to, unless you talk to someone in safety, they're not necessarily going to know the exact OSHA code, and that's not really testing engineering, in my opinion. To know that it's to know where to look in the reference, and because you're going to have that book in your office if you really needed it.
Right.
So.
Right. No, that's great. So, one of the last things I'll kind of hit on as far as exam prep is, a lot of people ask, how many hours do I need to put into preparing for either the FE or the PE? And then when you do give them a number, they like, holy cow. So when you were preparing for the PE, how many hours did you put in?
How long is the school PE class? 84 hours?
84.
Yeah, I mean, I would not like to say go by me, but students ask me the same exact question. They say, can I just take the school PE and will I be good? I took the school PE on the weekends. That's really all I did up till the last 2 weekends. I did a little bit on Mondays because we had class Saturday and Sunday. I did a little bit on Mondays to review, and then a little bit on Fridays to look ahead at what the next topic was going to be. And then the 2 weeks prior, like I said, practice. I personally simulated exactly what the exam would be. I bought the NCES practice exam. It's 40 morning questions, 40 afternoon. I had my secretary photocopy it because I'd look at the solutions if I didn't. So she photocopied just the questions, bound it together. And I actually walked into my house with my banker's box of reference material, put it down, and at 8 a.m. on a Saturday and started the clock and pretended to take the exam and simulated the whole thing. Took an hour lunch break, then did the afternoon portion. I think that prepared me well. It took a full Saturday, but it was really helpful.
Well, that sounds great because, a lot of times I'll tell people, at least, like say for FE, it's a 6-hour exam, set aside 6 hours. But I think your approach was great. I mean, like, act like you're going to the exam hall, take what you can, at least for the paper pencils, and then just hammer it out. No, that's great. That's great.
I actually ditched a reference and put a new one in when I did that too. People will always ask me, do you think I need this book? Do you think I need this other reference? And I'll say again, practice problems. If you start to notice that a trend in all your practice problems that you're always needing a specific reference, steel manual or a specific construction book that where the reference is, start to bring that, add that to your arsenal. If you start to look at the books that you have next to you and you're doing practice problems and you've realized you did 70 practice problems and you've never used this one reference material, it's probably not going to make or break you if you don't bring it. So.
All right. So what excites you every day to get up, to go to work? Is it maybe that engineering is such a wild field, or things change all the time, so you just don't know if your days are going to be the same or not? But what gets you out that door each day?
Yeah, I mean, my job today now, it's different every single day. I do work in government. People say, oh, the public sector, it's not that exciting. When I first took this job, my old boss said, you're only whatever 30 years old. How come you want to retire and go to a public sector job? And Orange County DPW is way different. It's different every day. There's always an emergency. My phone's ringing usually at 8 o'clock right when I walk in,
Wow.
or there's somebody here who says, oh, on the way in, the traffic signal was not functioning, or there was an accident, or somebody called and complained about a drainage issue. So it's always something different. And it really even leads into all other departments within the county. Parks, all of a sudden, the Parks Department wants to put in another trail, where they have a drainage issue at a park. So it's constantly busy, and I'm relied on a lot. So I like that part.
That sounds like every day is a little bit different for you, huh? As long as you keep the issues minimized, your neighbors aren't going to hate you every day. So
Exactly.
that's pretty funny, though. Well, no,
It's really what you make it. I mean, I could just hop in the car and essentially drive around all day and inspect stuff, but I take a lot of pride in what I do, and I take a lot of pride in my community, and I enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the greatest things I've had, since talking with you today is the fact that you grew up where you are and you're still working there. That's great. I mean, some deep ties to that community, which is pretty cool. You don't see that every day anymore, but it's great.
Yeah, I don't love the winters, but I blame my parents for that. I wish that I lived somewhere where I could golf all year round, but I can't move away from my family. I'm too close to them, and I like it here. So
understandable, but you can at least count on School of PE to get you out to LA twice a year.
There you go.
Well, maybe not so much after the exam moves CBT. We'll see how those on-sites do, but happy to get you back out to some little warmer weather.
I appreciate it.
So I know you got to be excited. The big draft is coming up here, I think, this week, right?
Yeah, my friend works for the Jets, and he's busy all weekend. He said Thursday, Friday, Saturday, he'll be
oh, wow,
going crazy.
I'm sure we'll be talking football here shortly. But hey, I appreciate Mike you coming out today and spending some time and chatting with us, chatting with the listeners. As always, it's a pleasure. We've been working together for 3 years, and this is the first time I think we've done face-to-face actually.
I
call it face-to-face, but we usually will do text or email. So it's
fun.
great to see you. And, put a face. I mean, I see your picture in the classroom every day, but it's nice to kind of put a face with a voice there. So, but hey, appreciate you coming by, and we'll bring you back another day for another episode. But
all right, I greatly appreciate it, Chris. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me, and thank you for all the opportunities you've given me with School of PE.
All right, absolutely, and go Steelers, huh? Take care, Mike. We'll see you later.
Take care. All right, thanks.
All right, guys. Till the next time. Have a good one.